What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 30 and the final episode of the Black Massacre series, where today I will be talking about the Tops grocery store Buffalo mass shooting of 2022. On May 14th, 2022, a mass shooting occurred in Buffalo, New York, United States, at a Tops Friendly Markets supermarket in the East Side neighborhood. 10 people, all of whom were black, were murdered and 3 were injured. The shooter, identified as 18-year-old Peyton S. Gendron, live-streamed part of the attack on Twitch, but the live stream was shut down by the service in under 2 minutes. Gendron was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder. He formally entered a plea of not guilty on May 19, 2022. On November 28, 2022, Gendron pleaded guilty to all state charges in the shooting, including murder, domestic terrorism, and hate crimes. On February 15, 2023, Gendron was sentenced to 11 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. As of that date, federal charges are still ongoing. Gendron is reported to have written a manifesto describing himself as an ethno-nationalist and a supporter of white supremacy who was motivated to commit acts of political violence. He voiced support for the far-right Great Replacement conspiracy theory in the context of a white genocide. The attack was been described as an act of domestic terrorism, and it is also being investigated as a hate crime, which was motivated by racism. Governor Kathy Hochul promised policy changes in the state as a result of the attack while condemning the shooter. Shortly afterwards, New York banned most semi-automatic sales to people under 21 and certain types of body armor. At around 2:30 p.m., Gendron arrived at the Tops supermarket on Jefferson Avenue in a predominantly black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York. He was armed with a Bushmaster XM15 AR-15 style rifle modified to accept high-capacity magazines and multiple 30-round ammunition magazines. In his car, he had a Savage Arms Axis XP hunting rifle and a Mossberg 500 shotgun. He was wearing body armor, a military helmet, and a head-mounted camera through which he live-streamed the attack on the online service Twitch. As he approached the scene, he was recorded on his live stream saying, "Just gotta go for it." At 2:31 p.m., Buffalo police received a call reporting shots fired at the store. The first responding officers and firefighters arrived a minute later and reported bodies lying outside the building. At 2:34 p.m., a dispatcher started informing responded officers of an active shooter situation at the store. Gendron shot 4 people in the parking lot, killing 3. He then entered the store, killing 8 more people and killing 6. According to a law enforcement source, he yelled racial slurs during the incident. Many employees and customers used the store's break room to hide from the shooter and barricaded the door with a heavy desk. Other customers were hidden by employees in the milk cooler and said the shooter shot through the coolers, but the milk carton stopped the bullets. At some point, an armed security guard, former Buffalo Police Department officer Aaron Salter Jr., shot at him. Due to the shooter's body armor, Salter's bullet did not stop him. Gendron returned fire at Salter, who died at the scene. At another point, he aimed his gun at a white person behind a checkout counter but apologized and did not shoot. By 2:36 p.m., Gendron had gone to the front of the building where patrol officers were able to talk him into dropping his gun after he reportedly aimed it at his neck. A total of 60 shots were fired during the shooting. After his arrest, he made disturbing statements regarding his motive and state of mind. 13 people, 11 of them black and 2 white, were shot, 10 fatally. One of them, 55-year-old Aaron Salter Jr., was a former Buffalo police lieutenant who was working as a security guard when he confronted the shooter. In addition to Salter, the people fatally shot were Celestine Cheney, age 65, Roberta A. Drury, age 32, Andre McNeil, age 53, Catherine Massey, age 72, Marcus D. Morrison, age 52, Hayward Patterson, age 67, Geraldine Talley, age 62, Ruth Whitfield, age 86, and Pearl Young, age 77. 4 victims were employees of the store, including Salter, who died. The other 3 survived. All 10 who died were black. Dozens of residents held a vigil at the supermarket the day after the shooting. True Bethel Baptist Church held a mourning service nearby, which was attended by families of the victims and some of those who survived the attack. A moment of silence was held at Game 1 of the 2022 National Lacrosse League Playoffs Eastern Semifinals being held in Buffalo between the Toronto Rock and Buffalo Bandits, and the proceeds of the 50-50 raffle were donated to the victims' families. Bandits head coach John Tavares told the media after his team's victory that the athletes played definitely with a heavy heart, given the circumstances. A charity softball game at Solon Field, featuring members of the Buffalo Bills, held a moment of silence prior to the event and donated a portion of the proceeds to the victims' families. The Tops closure after the shooting slowed food access in the East Side, where it was the only supermarket since it opened in 2003. Organizations inside and outside the community started programs to fill its absence, distributing and delivering food and clothing to residents. Tops provided free shuttle service to another location and pledged to send refrigerated food trucks daily. The company later stated that it would reopen the store on July 15th with a memorial honoring the victims. Erie County Sheriff John Garcia said the shooting was a straight-up racially motivated hate crime from somebody outside of our community. Stephen Belongia, the head of the local FBI office, told reporters that the agency is investigating the shooting as both a hate crime and an act of racially motivated violent extremism. Police arrested the shooter and transported him to the Buffalo Police Headquarters, with police reporting him to be in custody at about 2:36 p.m. The shooter's parents have cooperated with the investigators and were interviewed by federal agents. According to the Buffalo Police Commissioner, they uncovered information that if he escaped the supermarket, he had plans to continue his attack. The county's district attorney said he had evidence that Gendron was motivated by racial animosity. According to the law enforcement sources who spoke to the Buffalo News, they were investigating Gendron's alleged attack with a number of people online, including a retired federal agent, and whether these individuals had 30 minutes of advance notice of the attack yet did not notify the authorities. A separate investigation in connection to the shooting began on May 15th into the conduct of a 911 operator. An assistant manager at the Tops store reportedly called 911 and whispered to avoid detection by the shooter. The employee was then reportedly shouted at by the dispatcher, who wondered why the woman was whispering and then allegedly hung up on the employee. The office at the Erie County Executive announced the dispatcher was placed on administrative leave and was fired after a disciplinary hearing. The gunman, identified in court as Peyton S. Gendron, born June 20th, 2003, is a white male, age 18 at the time of the crime. He had traveled to the supermarket from his hometown of Conklin, New York for 3.5 hours, about 200 miles away. Gendron graduated from Susquehanna Valley High School and was previously enrolled at SUNY Broome Community College in Binghamton for an engineering science program. His parents are civil engineers. He previously stated his intention to become one as well, according to his neighbors. Classmates who were interviewed by the New York Times says that he was quiet and rarely attended in-person class, and he exhibited a range of idiosyncratic behavior, including wearing a hazmat suit to class. The police said that Gendron had been in Buffalo in early March. They also said that he was there a day before the shooting and he carried out a reconnaissance at the Tops supermarket. According to police, he had researched previous hate-motivated attacks and shootings. According to a childhood friend, Gendron came to his house the day before the shooting and left him with 5 boxes of ammunition. He said that he needed the space to rearrange his house and he would retrieve the ammunition later. In June 2021, Gendron had been investigated for threatening other students at his high school by the police in Broome County. A teacher had asked him about his plans after the school year, and he responded, "I want to murder and commit suicide." He was referred to a hospital for mental health evaluation and counseling, but was released after being held for a day and a half. Gendron told the police that he was joking. He would later write online about how it was a well-executed bluff. He was not charged in connection with the incident. Investigators said that he had not made a specific enough threat to warrant further action. The New York State Police did not seek an order from a state court to remove guns from Gendron's possession. The mental health evaluation was not an involuntary commitment, which would have prohibited from buying guns under federal law. Gendron cleared the background check by filing in Form 4473, as is typically required under U.S. federal law. During the purchase of the Bushmaster XM15 AR-15 style rifle used in the shooting, the seller said that Gendron passed the background check and that he did not remember Gendron. He cleared another check while purchasing a shotgun later recovered by police from Gendron's automobile at a store in the neighboring town of Great Bend, Pennsylvania, located 8.7 miles away from his Conklin house, saying that he would use it for target practice. Gendron crossed state lines from his home in New York to Pennsylvania to purchase a 30-round ammunition magazine, which is illegal in the state of New York. Before the shooting, Gendron wrote that he had purchased a rifle and illegally modified it in order to enable it to hold magazines, which were capable of holding up to 30 rounds, which are illegal in New York State, where the limit is 10 rounds. Gendron wrote that he selected an AR-15 style rifle for its effectiveness and specifically selected the Bushmaster XM15 for its notoriety. On his rifle, he had reportedly written the word nigger and referenced reparations, along with the names of white supremacist mass murderers Dylan Roof, Robert Bowers, Brenton Tarrant, and John Earnest. The acronym SYGAOWN stands for Stop Your Genocide Against Our White Nations. Far-right slang buck status broken, the year 2083, a reference to the manifesto of Anders Behring Breivik, and the Archangel Michael's cross of the fascist Romanian Iron Guard. A law enforcement source told the Daily Beast he had also written on his rifles names of one of more victims of the Waukesha Christmas parade attack. On the weapons in his car, which had not been used during the shooting, he reportedly had written White Lives Matter and what appears to be the name of a victim of a crime committed by a black suspect, according to CNN. Gendron is reported to have written a 180-page manifesto, which he released prior to the shooting, primarily concerning the topic of mass immigration. The manifesto was originally posted on Google Docs on the evening of May 12, 2 days before the attack, and according to filed data, it had not been modified since. Federal law enforcement sources told CNN that they were reviewing the document, as well as his 673-page online diary. The manifesto includes biographical information, including a birth date, which is identical to that of Gendron. The author describes himself as someone who initially identified himself as being on the authoritarian left, before he developed American neo-Nazi, anti-Semitic, eco-fascist, ethno-nationalist, populist, and white supremacist views. He claims to have adopted these ideological stances after he visited the discussion board poll on 4chan, an image board, as well as the website The Daily Stormer, beginning in May 2020, on which he saw infographics, shitposts, and memes at around the beginning of the pandemic in the United States. The manifesto primarily promotes the white nationalist and far-right Great Replacement conspiracy theory of Ronald Camus, which claims that elites are promoting immigration and decreasing white birth rates in an attempt to subject whites to a genocide. The manifesto also says that Jews and the elites are responsible for transgender inclusivity and non-white immigration, that black people disproportionately kill white people, and that non-whites will overwhelm and wipe out the white race. The author also expressed support for far-right mass shooters Dylan Roof, Anders Behring Breivik, and Brenton Tarrant. About 28% of the document is plagiarized from other sources, especially Tarrant's manifesto, as much as 57% of the text-based ideological sections were plagiarized in this manner. This was measured by excluding the sections which consisted of internet meme images, other pictures taken from online, and logistical discussion about the equipment for the attack. The planning for the attack commenced in January 2022, and Buffalo was targeted because it was the city with the most black residents that was closest to the author's home. He then proceeded to select the zip code area within Buffalo with the highest percentage of black residents. The manifesto includes extensive details about preparations made for the shooting, along with a plan to travel to a majority black neighborhood in Buffalo after the supermarket attack to conduct further attacks. It characterizes the attack as having been intended to terrorize all non-white, non-Christian people and get them to leave the country. Gendron is also reported to have had an account on the chat platform Discord with the same username as the Twitch user who live streamed the attack. Thousands of chat logs were retrieved from the account's posting in a private chat room, which were written in the form of an online diary and range from November 2021 to May 13, 2022. The logs include photos of Gendron and the author claimed to be Gendron. Police said that they believe the messages are genuine. The chat logs reference a speeding ticket that is consistent with one received by the accused. They also include to-do list items in preparation for the attack. The chat logs indicated the attack was originally planned for March 15th for the anniversary of the Christchurch mosque shootings. However, this was delayed due to the author developing a case of the virus. The logs contain indications from as early as November 2021 that he planned to live stream a mass shooting targeting black people. He claimed authorship of a post on 4chan from November 9th, 2021 that said a Brenton Tarrant event will happen again soon. The online diary also had sketches of the layout of the inside of the Top supermarket. The diary mentions visits to the supermarket on March 8th. During these visits, he notes being challenged by the security guard, calling it a close call. He also noted the number of black people and white people in the supermarket during his visits. The author considered an attack in various locations, including a Walmart in Rochester, New York, before finally deciding to target the Top supermarket in Buffalo instead. Other locations which he considered targets included church, malls, and elementary schools with mostly black attendees. He also considered attacking synagogues but decided against it because March 15th was not on a Saturday, the Jewish Sabbath. He wrote that he used data available through Google to determine the busiest times in the supermarket. The author of the online diary described himself as being socially isolated. He said, "I would like to say I had a quite normal childhood, but that is not the case." He also said, "It's not that I actually dislike other people, it's just that they make me feel so uncomfortable. I probably spent actual years of my life just being online, and to be honest, I regret it. I didn't go to friends' houses often or go to any parties or whatever. Every day after school, I would just go home and play games and watch YouTube mostly by myself." In another entry, he added, "If I could go back, maybe I'd tell myself to get the F off 4chan and get an actual life." At one point in the chat logs, the author describes killing and mutilating a cat. The chat logs include occasional suicidal ideation and self-doubt from the author. In a post dated December 9th, 2021, he describes staying in an emergency room of a hospital for 20 hours on May 28th, 2021 as a result of stating his intention to commit murder-suicide in an online assignment for his economics class. He described the hospital stay as a very negative experience that encouraged him to take action. In other entries, he posted photos of modifications he made to his rifle so that it could be equipped with 30-round magazines while acknowledging that this was illegal in New York. He also posted details about obtaining other equipment for a planned attack, such as body armor and a helmet. About 30 minutes before the shooting began, invitations to the chat room that hosted the online diary logs were sent to a small group of other Discord users. At least 15 other users joined the chat room after that point who would have been able to view the chat logs. According to a Discord spokesperson, they found no indication that any other users were aware of the diary before that time. He also sent links to the Twitch live stream that would show the attack. According to the message attached to the invite, Discord users could also view a live stream through the Discord chat room as opposed to the Twitch live stream. The chat room was disabled when Discord learned about its alleged relationship to the shooting. Other than the online diary, chat logs were also retrieved from a second chat room on Discord, which was dedicated to discussing weapons. There, the user reported to have been Gendron sought advice regarding equipment such as body armor. Prior to the shooting, the live stream footage quickly leaked to multiple forms of social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit. Gendron was arraigned in the Buffalo City Court, which is a New York State court. Represented by a public defender, he entered a not guilty plea to multiple charges of first-degree murder. A felony hearing was scheduled to begin on May 19th in front of a grand jury. He was held without bail under the suicide watch. On the same day, the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, confirmed that the United States Department of Justice was investigating the shooting as a hate crime and an act of racially motivated violent extremism. On May 19th, it was announced that he was indicted on the charge of first-degree murder by a grand jury in a decision that had been handed up by the day prior. Gendron briefly appeared in court on May 19th. On June 1st, a grand jury issued a 25-count indictment against Gendron. The jury charged him with 1 count of domestic terrorism motivated by hate, as well as 10 counts of first-degree murder as a hate crime, 10 counts of second-degree murder as a hate crime, 3 counts of attempted second-degree murder as a hate crime, and 1 count of second-degree criminal possession of a weapon, according to the Washington Post. Gendron was arraigned in Erie County on June 2nd, 2022 and pled not guilty to all 25 charges. On June 3, 2022, a filing made on behalf of one of the survivors from the attack sought a court order for the preservation of a number of items in the possession of Gendron's parents. The filing sought to preserve, among other things, any of his available cell phones, computers, and web browsing history, travel and school records, video game consoles, and receipts for firearms and ammunition. Additionally, the filing requested that his parents be made to provide pretrial depositions in court by July 29th. On June 15th, Gendron was charged with 26 counts of federal hate crimes and also additional gun charges. Should he be convicted of any of the more serious federal hate crimes, he faces the possibility of the death penalty. If the death penalty is applied, it would only be carried out by the federal government. On November 17th, Gendron agreed to plead guilty to all state charges. On November 28th, he pled guilty to 15 state-level counts, 10 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, motivated by hate, criminal weapons possession, and domestic terrorism motivated by hate. On February 15, 2023, Gendron was denied youthful offender status and received 10 concurrent life sentences without the possibility of parole. As of the date of his state sentencing, federal charges are still ongoing. In December 2022, Gendron's lawyer indicated that he would be willing to plead guilty in order to avoid receiving the death penalty, which does not exist under New York state law. President Joe Biden offered his prayers for the victims and their families. He called the shooting a racially motivated hate crime and act of terrorism, and went on to call white supremacy a poison running through our body politic. The Erie County Sheriff's Office tweeted their condolences to all of the victims and their families and offered resources and personnel to assist the officers. Twitch confirmed that its service was used to broadcast the shooting. It said that the account that posted the live stream had been indefinitely suspended and that any attempts to restream the footage will be monitored and prohibited. The shooter's live stream was removed less than 2 minutes after the violence started, according to a spokesperson. It was unclear if he was still actively firing at the time. The live stream was recorded by at least one individual and posted to the site Streamable, where it had acquired more than 3 million views by May 15th. The spread of the videos on other sites had led to discussions about social media sites' liability, responses to similar content, and free speech on the sites. American publications widely condemned the conspiracy theories, including the notion of a white genocide supposedly occurring in the U.S. advocated by the assailant. The Daily Beast journalist Andy Craig has argued that beliefs centered around the claim that there is a deliberate plot to commit genocide against white Americans using non-white immigration as its supposed primary means created a noxious brew of ideas that animated the killer, recommending that all supporters of freedom of speech as an ideal condemn such extremist thinking. The shooter's claim of a great replacement has drawn increased scrutiny of Republican political and media figures who have made statements embracing or echoing the conspiracy, most prominently Fox News former commentator Tucker Carlson. National Review, a conservative news magazine, criticized the scrutiny of Carlson, with columnist Dan McLaughlin saying he never mentioned Tucker Carlson and he expresses hatred for Fox News in the manifesto. In response, Carlson said that the suspect's manifesto was not recognizably left-wing or right-wing, is not really political at all. The document is crazy. However, Kate Maltby, writing for the Jewish Chronicle, drew attention to language the shooter used in his manifesto to attack diversity, which is similar to that Carlson employed in one of his broadcasts. House Republican Conference Chair Elise Stefanik, the third highest ranking Republican in the U.S. House, also had attention drawn to her hardline views in the conspiracy theory that the Democratic Party is trying to replace or overwhelm Republican voters with immigrants using an open-door immigration policy in order to win elections. Footage from the Buffalo shooting was reportedly included on a violence-glorifying website created by the 2022 Colorado Springs shooting suspect. The proposed Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act, which would have established domestic terrorism offices in the DOJ and FBI focused on neo-Nazis and white supremacy, passed the House on May 18th but failed in the Senate on May 26th. Republicans argued that the measure duplicated already existing efforts by American law enforcement while also risking targeting individuals unfairly as political extremists. Democrats noted the tough polarization in Congress while arguing that Republicans failed to compromise on pragmatic changes to fight gun deaths. On June 7, 2022, United States Senate Committee on the Judiciary held hearings to examine the metastasizing domestic terrorism threat after the Buffalo attack. The committee heard testimony from the son of Rampage victim Ruth Whitfield, former commissioner of the Buffalo Fire Department Garnell Whitfield Jr., who asked the committee to imagine the faces of your mothers as you look at the face of my mother, Mrs. Ruth Whitfield, and ask yourself, is there nothing we can do? Is there nothing that you personally are willing to do to stop the cancer of white supremacy and the domestic terrorism it inspires? In response to this attack, as well as the Robb Elementary School shooting in Uvalde, Texas that occurred 10 days afterwards, the New York State Legislature passed laws banning semi-automatic sales to most people under 21, as well as certain types of body armor. New York Governor Kathy Hochul traveled to Buffalo to assist with the response. Governor Hochul said, "We'll be aggressive in our pursuit of anyone who subscribes to the ideals professed by other white supremacists, and how there's a feeding frenzy on social media platforms where hate festers more hate." Hochul called for stronger federal gun violence prevention legislation, saying what has made this so lethal and so devastating for this community was the high-capacity magazine that would have to been purchased elsewhere that's not legal in the state of New York. The attorney for one of the victims' family, Benjamin Crump, has argued that public policy changes need to take place to fight political extremist activism as a result of the shooting. He remarked, "We have to direct our attention to these internet sites that inspire these young people that are radicalizing them to be hate mongers, to be people who hate people because of the color of their skin." The New York State Education Department announced that it was canceling the U.S. Government and History Regents exam because it contained a question that the department determined might be upsetting to students in the aftermath of the shooting. The state did not specify what the question said or why it may have been objectionable. Canisius College and local university that Aaron Salter Jr. had previously attended posthumously awarded him a bachelor's degree during their 2022 graduation ceremony. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau condemned the attack. Buffalo is on the Canadian border and is adjacent to Fort Erie, Ontario. Jim Diodati, the mayor of Niagara Falls, Ontario, called Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown to express his solidarity with Buffalo. Flags in Niagara Falls were lowered at half-mast in honor of the victims. This is an added update to the video that I'm doing right now, to the episode that I'm doing right now, and it's actually very recent, as in it was posted July 12, 2023, so it's very, very recent. Where it says families of Buffalo mass shooting victims sue social media companies, gun store, and shooters' parents. Now, if y'all remember, I actually did a video talking about this, I believe back in May. So I don't know if this is like new information or if this is just rehashing what they talked about in May. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the sites that they're going after, and they're pretty much going after all. So these are the platforms they're going after. It says Meta Platforms Incorporated, formerly known as Facebook, Instagram LLC, Snap Incorporated, which I'm assuming is Snapchat, or maybe it's something else, Alphabet Incorporated, Google's parent company, YouTube LLC, Discord, Reddit, 4chan, and Amazon.com, which operates the live streaming service Twitch. So kudos to the loved ones of those families who are on the right track and doing exactly what I believe has to be done. But with that being said, that is going to conclude episode 30 of the Black Massacre series, and not only conclude episode 30, but is going to conclude the entire series as a whole. I would genuinely like to thank everybody who has been following my channel, who has been watching this series over the course of the last 30 weeks. I cannot believe that we started this back in January of this year, and we are at the end of July. I can't believe it that we have now made it to the end. Shout out to everybody who came through. If you've learned anything new from this series that you were not already made aware of before, I'm glad that I was able to be a vessel for you to go out and learn more. Granted, of course, I wasn't able to get to it. I'm very sure that there are very many more massacres out there that I was not able to touch on, but these were the 30 that I came across that I really wanted to speak on. But again, shout out to everybody who was tuned in, who was locked in for these last 30 weeks. And be sure, and I'm saying this now, to tune in on this upcoming Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because I will be doing a live stream recap of the series, and I'm going to allow people to come up and, you know, say what they want to say, what did they like about the series, you know, all of that good stuff. It's going to be a really interesting stream for sure. This Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be the Black Massacre series recap shows, and that's going to be like the totality, and that's going to really close the series out. But with that being said, be safe and be one.